you yourself are actually learning. And in teaching, although it's called teaching, but to be honest, I think that's a wrong word for it. Because while you're giving the lecture, you yourself are actually learning. Because teaching, or what, when you're looking at teaching, it's actually one way of learning. Because before you come to class, you have to prepare and you have to review. And then a lot of these questions that people would address, they would come to you. And you would have to figure out how to simplify the answers, how to help people understand it. And you yourself, you would have to challenge yourself. So all those different questions. Oh, the girls in the back. Quiet. Sorry, guys. So I really recommend, even when I would go, hold your own classes. Make your own classes. Sit in and prepare your own classes, maybe review or take a book and read a book, for example, and start learning it, start teaching it. Even if you were not specialized, it's actually good for you to learn. For you to learn. It's a good way of reviewing what you had learned, and a good way of keeping yourself up to date with seeking more ilm. And when you are talking about the class, there are certain things that come with it, in where you have to stay tentative. You have to stay focused. But when you're on the other end, you don't stay focused all the time. When you're on the other end, when you're in front, well, what I mean in front, my front, not everyone is focused as much as I have to be focused, the person that's delivering the class. But the people that are sitting in front of me, they can get sleepy, I can get boring, and all that can happen. But you as a speaker, you have to stay engaged.
I think for me,
and that's why I really recommend taking the time for you to really teach, in order to learn, in order to review, in order to research, in order to know what. Hold the different classes, call it a dhikr class. Call it a dhikr class in your masjid, in your area. Do some activity in prisons. Now, those are a different world. Prisons are really in need. It's really important to take over these prisons. And the good news, some prisons do allow me to do Zoom classes. It's really good, because driving there and even being within the facility, the correction facility, is not fun at all. Not fun. Not fun. Getting searched and going through these electric, machines and all of that, and hearing those doors and hearing all the yuck. Yeah. It's not pleasant, especially if you grew up away from such an environment. That environment can be just very disturbing, the least to say. It can be very disturbing to hear these kind of words, to even hear officers. You would expect that they're more professional. You would expect that they would be, formal, professional, disciplined, but that's not really the case. That's not really the case. You feel that, it's like it's a whole combination of the same. The people that are dressed in, whether it's, the inmate uniform, they're just the ones that got caught, really. They're the ones that got caught, and the other ones are the ones that didn't get caught. But you feel they were drinking from the same water, from the same environment. They're watching the same movies. They were they were engaging in the same type of environment, the same type of speech, the same type of behavior. It's really the same. And there's no way that you can say that your words, the way that you behave, etc., that's going to be different, or at least that's going to be different than what is in this box, which is in your brain. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was always focusing. Really want to change the person's akhlaq, what you really need to do is change their vision, change their Islam right there. They have to change their mind to become Muslim. And the second that they have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the center, that's when they would change. Yep.
Every day when I leave class, I teach my husband. So
Good
I go
job.
back to the notes. And if
Good
he's
job.
not there, I text him, I teach you.
Exactly.
And
Good
if I
job.
don't teach you, I call Khadija, I tell her you missed out.
Oh
Teach the
no.
person who missed the class.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
that's
take
how I
the
remember.
time.
They think I'm so smart, I remember things. No, I just go back and then I start
You
teaching.
have to. You have to review it. Even if you create short reels, short videos, this is what I learned and I'd like to share it.
And Dr. Aisha will answer you.
Oh, alhamdulillah, I will answer. I will answer. Yes, I sometimes I do forget, so please bring it up, even if you send me an emoji. I love emojis. Okay. It just
You go into a lot right now.
yeah. So وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. We left off at this ayah and وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى, and we talked about relatives. We talked about the different types of relatives. We said there are the rahim and there are those that are not rahim. And we said the rahim ones are basically the relatives coming from, of course, the rahim would be the relatives coming from the more, so you're talking about the near relatives, aunts, sisters, aunts, sisters, also nieces, usually the female relatives. And the Prophet ﷺ had actually said in the hadith that if you want to increase your rizq, you would have to visit your rahim, especially for the guys. You want to increase your rizq, you want your wealth to get into an increase, well, you would have to integrate within your life visiting the women relatives, your sisters, your aunts, your nieces, those that are considered as women, female relatives that are mahram to you. So that's وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى. And we talked about وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى, to mean do ihsan, the most ihsan to the parents, and then the second most ihsan to the relatives, and then the third most ihsan to the orphans. Who's an orphan? An orphan is somebody whose father had died, okay? Specifically the father. What about the mom? Well, the yatim is generally more the father, so why the father and not the mother? So yes, he's also yatim from the mother, but Islam considers more the loss of the father, meaning the loss of the breadwinner, to being more than just a breadwinner. It's a financial, and it's also a decision making, and it's also giving security and support. Yes, certainly the mother gives affection, but that doesn't mean that Islam disregards the mother. The biggest evidence is the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked who's the most one that deserves my good companionship, and he told him your mother 3 times, versus he said your father once. Certainly that doesn't mean that we are considering that the loss of a mother is a secondary thing, but in fact it is primary. But Islam does hold a huge weight on the child's, or of course the impact of the child's father, that it holds a lot of weight because the person had lost their security, they lost their honor, they lost their support, they lost their financial enhancement. So many different things actually come with it. That's with a mother, yes, they lost their affection. They lost, definitely, especially when the child is younger, They more hang on to the affection, they more hang on to, these emotional relationships rather than the pragmatic ones, let's say it that way. But you could say, well, this is not exclusive to yatim to really just mean the loss of the father. So this would really be inclusive to anybody that had lost either or the parents, whether one parent or two parents. Now, it's really important when we look at وبالوالدين إحسانا وبذي القربى. In other words, بالوالدين إحسانا وبذي القرب ذي القربى إحسانا, and إحسان لليتيم, إحسان للمسكين, and so forth. So the word إحسانا, this is basically saying as you would deal with the walidain, you would deal with the parents in ihsan, well, so should you deal with the relatives. Okay, but definitely the parents come first. Waliyatama, and the orphans. Now it's really important to mention that an orphan would cease to stay as an orphan once they reach the age of puberty. Because in Islam, once you reach the age of puberty, you had become an adult. You had become an adult. Supposedly, you're mature. Okay, and in that situation, they don't take the same recognition, or at least the same support from the other people that an orphan who had lost their support. Okay, so in other words, what does it mean to actually give support for al-yatim? Number one is helping them get the guidance in deen. Number two, if there's anything that involves their security, their well-being, then that would be part of what you would need to invest in support. Okay. And number three, of course, their mental health. And what we mean by mental health, maybe giving them the emotional support. Maybe at that moment, just, hey, just be there to probably give them an advice, to probably be there on behalf of their missing parent, to be acting as supporter for them, the emotional support. Number four is the part about chastity, to be as a parent to them, to be as a family to them on behalf of their lost loved one. And number five is the part about the financial support. Most people would focus on the financial support and leave out the rest. Most people would focus on the financial support. So they'll give them money. They will give them money, and then the rest, it becomes forgotten, not recognizing that there are certain things that are considered even probably more important than just giving the person food or just sending them some money and putting them something in the canteen. And what a person loses with the loss of a parent, the most thing that they lose is what? Love, emotional connection, guidance, dignity. It's the most thing they lose. Dignity. When a person has their father there, their father would hold a certain social status. They would hold a certain social status, but when it's a child, they usually are dismissed. But most of the times, the social status that a father might have basically gets transcended onto the child. They'll recognize you through your parents. Yeah. They'll recognize you through your parents. At least society. Maybe right now you don't feel it much, but when you're younger, they recognize you through your parents, not through who you are, because they're only seeing you as an orphan. But when your father was there, they would see you as the daughter of X or Y. Of course, we're talking about a society that is centered around family and tribes and all of that. So then the child, at least the orphan, would only be seen through their need. That's why they lose their dignity. All right. That's why they lose. They would only be seen that they're just in need. But when a person is not in need, they're actually seen through their upper hand and what they can give, what they can contribute, and what is behind them. I mean, look at the society right now. You want to ask about anybody, at least from the celebrities. There's one area where Google will tell you the net worth of that person. The net worth, $250 million, $1 million, billion, 3 billion, whatever, trillion. Anybody worth Elon Musk here?
We don't want to.
We don't want to. I would want to. I would want to. Hey, I could use that money and probably support Gaza, build Islamic schools, and why not? نعمل مال الصالح لعبد الصالح. Why not?
It's too much. You're gonna die and you have to be the last person to get to Jannah.
I'll hire, don't worry about that part. I'll hire some people that I trust in order to say, okay, I want 67% to go for Islamic education, and I want 12% to go for probably housing people or whatever it is, or probably this much. Contrast, why not?
I mean, she's thinking about the fact that handling that money takes a lot. I mean, because he has a lot of assets, he has to kind of handle all of them.
He doesn't handle them directly. You think he doesn't even count them.
Well, he has to.
He
He's in
doesn't count
charge.
them. He's got some people
I
doing the
want to
job
have
for
that
him.
wealth, but I don't want to keep $5. Because if I die that minute, I don't want to be the last person.
Well,
to
you
get
can
to
think of the amount if you were to invest. I mean, I know none of us are going to be in his level of richness, okay? So it's not like I need to convince you too much. I'm sure I don't need to convince you too much to actually get his money. But نعمل مال الصالح للعبد الصالح. Good wealth is actually good for salih. Oh, it's good. You know why? للعبد الصالح. If a person is a salih person, they can contribute a lot in making a change. What we actually need is salihin with money. We need salihin with money that would then contribute, support, and finance, and even and give that support for those that are creating the difference. What's happening right now? We're really, the main thing that we're dealing with is a loss and, of course, an imbalance in the distribution. So even if let's say you had all that money, okay, look at the good things that you could do out there. Imagine the good things that you could do out there. What would you do with it?
Me?
I would
12% deen.
12% deen, okay.
And then nafs.
Nafs, what are you gonna do? Eat
Make that
cheesecake
easy.
all day?
Nafs, aqal, taking care of kids and their mind away from drugs, the younger generation, giving them jobs to keep them busy. Then you have to come to chastity, getting married, all this.
Get them all
financing
married?
Marriages,
Financing
chastity,
marriages? Okay.
and then mile now making sure.
Do you really want to get people married before giving them a job?
No. Getting them a job is important. So you give them.
Of course. That's what you're gonna do.
You
Create companies, probably.
companies, and then you give
Creating
Never gonna
companies.
get it right.
There you go. Creating companies
them, you know,
generates employment. You generate employment. You basically let them work in order to bring about a stable income. And that way you won't have to keep on financing them. It's not about giving them the fish. It's about teaching them how to fish.
Then the education is important.
That's one thing, to be honest. Look at the boycott. How many people says that it was very hard to boycott Israel? It was very hard
In everything.
in everything.
Who my shoes?
And that's why Israel is very strong. You know why? Because part of the system and how they learn how to make that system contribute for them is really by making and doing that work on the economy part. So you would be like, how is it that if I were to drink a cup of coffee going to support Israel? They made the services, and through those services, they made such services be contributing for Israel. And that's what we're talking about. If you were to build a company, okay, unfortunately, as Muslims, we still have a problem with understanding our priorities in economy. We think, and this is very common, we think that if I am to actually give Sarah, let's say $20,000 that I helped her ended there. Islam actually tells you, well, no, don't give her $20,000, get her a job. That would actually be better than giving her the $20,000. Getting her a job is going to make her, one, bring about a progress and a prosperity for the community. Prosperity for the community. Then, once she gets a job, she will create more jobs for more people. So Islam tells you, that's why when we're talking about al-qard al-hasan, for example, it's actually better. What is al-qard al-hasan? Al-qard al-hasan is different than al-qard itself. Al-qard could be,
الله
I'll
أكبر
give you
الله
$20,000.
أكبر أشهد أن لا إله
We'll come
إلا
back
الله
about the money.
أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. استو استو الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. وقال الذين لا يرجون لقاءنا لولا أنزل علينا الملائكة أو نرى ربنا لقد استكبروا في أنفسهم وعتوا عتوا كبيرا يوم يرون الملائكة لا بشرى يومئذ للمجرمين ويقولون حجرا محجورا وقدمنا إلى ما عملوا من عمل فجعلناه هباء منثورا أصحاب الجنة يومئذ خير مستقيم مستقرا وأحسن مقيلا ويوم تشقق السماء بالغمام ونزل الملائكة تنزيلا الملك يومئذ الحق للرحمن وكان يوما على الكافرين عسيرا ويوم يعض الظالم على يديه يقول يا ليتني اتخذت مع الرسول سبيلا يا ويلتى ليتني لم أتخذ فلانا خليلا لقد أضلني عن الذكر بعد إذ جاءني وكان الشيطان للإنسان خذولا وقال الرسول يا رب إن قوم اتخذوا وقال الرسول يا رب إن قوم اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا وكذلك جعلنا لكل نبي عدوا من المجرمين وكفى بربك هاديا ونصيرا الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
All right. وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى. And we said al-yatim is the person that lost their father. Oh. Al-latim is the person that lost both parents. They're called the latim. Al-yatim lost father. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يتم بعد احتلام.
When only the mom. Only the mom.
Only the mom? I forgot. Makes sense? It's not yatim. But they are considered in the general term that they yatim. Okay. But yatim is mainly the loss of a father. والمساكين. المساكين are the needy. Now, scholars had differences of opinions on the difference between a maskeen and the faqir. Which one is in more need, faqir or maskeen? Differences of opinions between scholars. All right? Difference. You guys like that word, right? You're starting to like it. I can sense that. You're starting to like it. No sweat, no need to fight.
Always.
Right? So, الفقير, some scholars considered that al-faqir is considered at a more dire need than a miskin. Oh, why? Because they considered إنما صدقات للفقراء والمساكين. They said الفقراء was preceding المساكين. So how can somebody even be poor? الفقير may not have not even the basic needs. المسكين may have the basic needs, but probably by the end of the month, they're probably short a month or two, sometimes by far. Sometimes they'll make it really well. Oh, the Prophet ﷺ said that is leaving behind, whether you're talking about those that are inheriting from you or whether we're talking about giving a sadaqah, the best sadaqah is what leaves the person being close to the state of being rich. All right? So sadaqah, a good sadaqah, is not the sadaqah that you are, I'll cover a couple basic things in your life because you had left them still in need. But the best sadaqah is when you give an amount of sadaqah that not only gives and covers the basics for the person that is in need, but gets them out and they were capable of making money out of that and generating a job and probably making a business out of it. In other words, in Islam, it's not an issue of leaving the person under your mercy or under the government assistance, but it's actually to give them the amount of money for them to start something that will sustain them. Something that will sustain them and not necessarily stay always in need. That's why it's really important to also, when you give sadaqah to someone, it's sometimes necessary to help them sometimes understand how to use the money to make money. How to use the money to make money. And that's why the World Bank, you know what they do, the World Bank? The World Bank, when they give loans to a country, in order to keep the country under their imperialist powers, they will tell you that you cannot use that money to generate money. They are so cruel. So what they'll do, this is real. They will not, let's say you went to the World Bank and you said, hey, I'm actually trying to get a loan, even though the loan is basically riba, it's going to be 11%. Okay, let's say you go to World Bank, hey, I'd like to try to build perhaps hospitals or probably companies to make employment, etc. No, they'll tell you no. They want you to stay under their imperialist powers. So they'll tell you, yeah, what do you want? Oh, you want to make streets? Okay, yeah, make streets. Because that doesn't generate money. You make streets, okay. It's going to still keep you under their power. All right. Now, but in Islam, it tells you, no, the best sadaqah is what leaves a person rich, or at least on the threshold of being rich in order to start and move on. It is important to sometimes help the person that you are helping know how to figure themselves out. Give them ideas. Well, maybe you would want to do this. Maybe you should do this. I think sometimes the Muslims are, I would say, over and too innocent in the way they would donate. And what I mean by that is that they would donate for a masjid, for example, and they would consider, okay, I donated to the masjid, they should figure it out. Well, there should be a board, and there should be a whole list of what is the money doing. That's the way that you can keep everybody accountable. How much money is going for this? How much money is going for marketing? How much money is going for maintenance? How much money is going for perhaps food? How much money is going for maybe classes, activities, parking lot, expansion? And one thing is that churches do very well, and I think masajid are not doing a good job in that, is that here in the US, they have, if you're a nonprofit organization, you cannot take and run a business. All right, if you're a nonprofit organization, you can't run a business. So let's say Gems of Light. I cannot franchise a Caribou, for example, and say all the profit is going to go for Gems of Light. That's illegal because that's a business franchise. You can't do that. But I can accept, as a nonprofit organization, we can accept donated items. So that's why they have things like Goodwill, Salvation Army, and all those, because you're taking in people's used items and you can sell these. So Savers, Goodwill, etc., those would go for these nonprofit organizations. And here's one thing, is that what many don't recognize is that a lot of masajid are treated like it's a profit organization. And that's why it's really important to go over and actually ask how much of that money is going for maintenance or teaching or whatever it is. And you would have to contribute. You would have to contribute and force that the board would consider certain things. Once we have these numbers, this is going to help us as a Muslim community consider what are our priorities. And I think a lot of times the masajid are investing more in the walls than in the hearts. That we want a masjid to have very nice, very nice, beautiful decorations and all of that, and a very big minaret on the outside that kind of looks attractive and etc. And it's really strange how a lot of times you would see masajid, they would tell you, our kids are running away from the masjid because it doesn't look so nice. It's like the masjid is not necessarily supposed to be that it's, yes, definitely, why not have a nice looking masjid? But what we really need to contribute in is really what we build within. How much money is going for probably teaching Islam to the neighborhood? Do we have activities to let the neighborhood around the masjid get to know Islam, get to know the Muslims, get to know what we are? Just introduce ourselves. Hey, we're this group here, and this is what we have at the masjid. You're welcome to check it out. How many masajid do that? Very few. There are some. I think Pakistani masajid are doing an excellent job in that regard, not the other community. I think fair is fair. Pakistani and Indian communities are doing very well in introducing and understanding the importance of introducing Islam and also the masajid and what they are to their neighborhoods. The other masajid, I think we have a lot to do. We have a lot to work on in that regards. Let others know. Pass out pamphlets, invite them to the masjid. Come and check us out. Come and learn about us. We'll be happy to see you. Pass out candies. Make a barbecue day outside. Everybody in the neighborhood, come and get to know our masjid. We're making a free barbecue. Bring them in. Right? Just different ideas. Okay. Somebody wanted to say something. Go ahead, my dear.
You mentioned, is it like someone in order to change life, to be sustainable financial needs? Is it like zakat when we get?
Fair enough. Zakah is different than sadaqah. Zakah is different than sadaqah. Zakah is more exclusive. One is zakah is only given to Muslims. Only given to Muslims. Why not? Because zakah is a ibadah. It's in order to contribute within a ibadah, because more than just the ibadah of giving, it's also making the ibadah of making a Muslim community. That's number one. Zakah is only given to 8 different categories that are mentioned in that ayah. إنما صدقات الفقراء والمساكين etc. Zakah is only within these 8 categories. Yet, scholars had differences of opinions on the category fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillah, out of all of those, can the masajid actually be part of those that would qualify to take in zakah? Can Gemsoflight qualify?
Yes.
Can Jannah Institute qualify? Can an institution to be a duxi qualify? When you're actually talking about that, scholars actually had a huge debate in that regards. Let me tell you why they debated. Listen to this. They debated because before fi sabilillah, there was something called Bayt al-Mal. Bayt al-Mal was more of the government treasury. Now, the government was the one that was responsible to cover a lot of the different a lot of the different finances to finance the government, infrastructure, schools, hospitals, all these different things. That was supposed to be the government's responsibility. That was part of fi sabilillah, or at least it was part of the government's responsibility. But when you look at the categories, إنما الصدقات, when it was talking about الفقراء المساكين والعاملين عليها في الرقاب, etc., some scholars said that that was really exclusive to, in other words, individual human services, and that that wasn't for public use. If we're talking about hospitals, that's public use. If we're talking about making streets, traffic lights, that's public use. They said that doesn't qualify for zakah. Zakah is exclusive to individual support for a specific support. Yet the one about fi sabilillah, that was the one that was probably containing the most controversy. Because fi sabilillah, historically speaking, the Bayt al-Mal, the Muslim treasury, and we're talking about the Muslim government, that was covering all the different needs for different, let's call them nonprofit organizations. So under what was called al-Waqf. What was al-Waqf? Al-Waqf was a form of donation, but that donation was made to the public. So somebody would put their house for waqf. That house becomes waqf. In other words, it becomes a facility, if they're putting their home, a facility to be for the general ummah. And then the awqaf would decide whether they wanted, those that are responsible for the general awqaf, they would decide whether they want to use that as an orphanage, or probably as a shelter, or probably as a school, etc. Then the awqaf would consider, well, this was donated. Al-awqaf is not usually money. Al-awqaf is usually property. So we're talking about houses, we're talking about maybe even water. It's usually property, okay? Usually that, it doesn't mean awqaf cannot be money, of course. You know, in order to maintain these things, you also need to have money as well. But then when the awqaf was basically not there anymore, that's why you had certain modern scholars consider that fi sabilillah would also be including places such as educational places, masajid in America, non-profit organizations to teach Islam, non-profit organizations to teach Quran, non-profit organizations to take care of the needy, the shelter, an all-women's shelter, whatever it is. They consider that that can also qualify for zakah. Under what banner? Under the category of fi sabilillah. Oh, this is that category. So that's important to mention. And that's not a new interpretation, but that's also Ibn Jibreen. You had a number of different scholars actually consider that opinion, which really is an important opinion, because when you look at Muslim property and Muslim organizations, many times the Muslim individuals within the Muslim countries, the governments would be the ones to take care of al-awqaf. But here in America, there is no awqaf. And therefore, to keep the masajid sustained, They changed the sprinklers for almost $80,000.
120.
120. Just the sprinklers. Just the sprinklers. We didn't even do anything yet. You would be so surprised as how much it would cost to change anything. A bathroom cost a lot of money, 50, 80, 70, $120,000. And it was really, you just think of it, we just changed the bathroom. Labor in America is extremely, extremely expensive. The society has been so focused on considering that degrees and university degrees are so important that right now people don't know how to do the simplest jobs. Right now, if you really want to make money, work in construction. You will make great money. And I mean great money. Couple days and by the way, just on a side, Dunwoody, not far from here, 94 West, and you will actually, 94 East, you will actually there learn how to fix a lot of different things, and don't necessarily think it requires body and strong muscles. No, some of it doesn't, especially in America. It's all made of biscuit. Simple things, it's all about, putting things together and figuring the smallest things, and they are making things really easy. Anyway, that's a different story. وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. So this is for اليتامى. المساكين, who are المساكين? Talked about المسكين. المسكين is basically the person in need, but not necessarily as much as الفقير. Not as much as الفقير. So why didn't the ayah say والفقير والفقراء والمساكين? Well, if we were to say take care of المسكين, that means الفقير, who's even poorer, who's even in more dire need than the miskin, would definitely be included within it. وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى. I want you to look at الجار right here, because الجار is supposed to be a person that is your neighbor. So when you look at it, it's supposed to be the neighbor, but then it's saying الْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى. الجار ذي القربى. So what does that even mean? Why is it talking about الجار ذي القربى? In other words, if it basically talks about three different elements or items here, الجار ذي القربى, and then والجار الجنوب, in other words, it's a different person. وصاحب الجنب, it's a different person. So those are three different people. How do we know it's a three different people and not someone else, or at least not a different description? The letter wa. The letter wa simply means what is called al-mughayara. What is al-mughayara? Al-mughayara means an alternate thing. It's an alternate substance. It's an alternate thing. The and right here, wa. That addition is really also lil-mughayara. That there's something different. Apples and bananas. But you don't say banana and a banana. And just say two bananas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Two bananas. Not banana and a banana. Two bananas. Three bananas. Not banana and a banana, banana. Unless you're Somali. It's a different story. You gotta have a banana.
And a banana.
And a banana. Well, banana while you're eating the meal. Banana after the meal.
Yes.
And banana within your pocket to go for the following
And
meal.
you sell it to make money.
What was that?
You also sell it to make money.
Exactly. And you sell the banana to make more bananas. Right. To make more bananas. I like that. I think a while ago I got this this reel of this Somali guy get a therapist. He had a banana in his pocket, remember?
Oh, yeah.
He had a banana in his pocket and he's like, what seems to be the problem? And he was like, well, I've been really feeling depressed and anxiety. And he's like, when was the last time you prayed Fajr? Well, first of all, he was like, okay, it seems like you haven't eaten in a long time. Gives him a banana. Gives him a banana. That should actually get your sugar first. And then, okay, continue talking. Well, when was the last time you prayed Fajr?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yep. Salah, the Tariq Salah syndrome. That's it. There's no help for you. Tariq Salah syndrome. That's it.
End of diagnosis.
End of the diagnosis. That's it. I don't know what he said in Somali, the rest of the words, but I'm sure that's it. That was the ruqya.
It's like, get away from me, get away from me.
Exactly. That was the Somali way. All right. Well, Jari Dil Qurba. Now, here's one thing. Scholars actually had three differences of opinions on these three neighbors. The first group said, well, when we're talking about al-Jari Dil Qurba, we're talking about proximity. The first one is the really nearby neighbor, in other words, the closest neighbor, and then following al-Jari al-Junub, then they're talking about the farther away, and then Sahibi bil-Janb, and the one that's far, the closest to the farthest. Okay. Oh, the first group, they said it was really in proximity. The second group, they actually said, no, it's not proximity per se. It's actually activity. Activity. What does that even mean? So they said, al-Jari Dil Qurba would really be the person that is accompanying you, which is like the wife. al-Jari al-Junub is like the person that's accompanying you in your travel. Sahib al-Janb is the person that's accompanying you in your different activities, work, etc. Here we go. Look at it from the activity angle. The other group, they said, no, it's not an activity. It's actually the person that you more have in different types of commonalities. You share more time with, you have more common identity. So they said al-Jari Dil Qurba is a Muslim neighbor. Exactly. A Muslim neighbor. That's a neighbor, but al-Qurba, this person's really close because you share identity, you share religion with. So therefore, al-Jari al-Junub is basically the non-Muslim neighbor. You share, they're your neighbors, but then they're basically farther. Sahib al-Janb, they said, well, that would be the neighbor that would be of probably a different group, etc. Then they went into detail. Then they looked into, no, this is actually talking about not necessarily the closeness in terms of identity or faith, but they considered, the other group considered that no. So this would be al-Jari Dil Qurba would be a person that is your neighbor, but he's also a relative. He's my brother, and he's also my neighbor. Second one, al-Jari al-Junub. He's my neighbor, but he's not related to me. Sahib al-Janb, he's my neighbor and probably a different identity, probably a different group, etc. And yeah, at the end of the day, is that we could see something really important in this, is that we see that the wife was mentioned, a person during the journey, a person that you would accompany at work, a person that you would accompany maybe in school, etc. In other words, the way you treat the people that surround you, whether you had a neighborhood that you shared with them, or whether you were accompanying them on a trip, or whether you were accompanying them at work, or whatever it is, it's about maintaining good relations with the people that are within your social orbit. Maintaining good relations within your social orbit, whether the social orbit was actually talking about in geography, or whether that was time, in other words, it's space, time, or even identity. Maintaining good relations with the people next to you. How? How do we maintain good relations? Ayan, what do you think?
By shutting up.
By shutting up, Allah yahdiki.
No, I think it's not easy, but distance a little distance is healthy.
A little distance is healthy. Well, the Prophet ﷺ is basically, let's see. Here's the hadith. All right. So the Prophet ﷺ said Jibreel was ما زال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه سيورث. Jibreel was constantly telling him to, in other words, making this will and telling him to be good to the neighbor because he actually thought that he was going to be his inheritor. You know, I mean, okay, this is a metaphor. This is not literal, okay? This is a metaphor. Let's look at this. The Prophet ﷺ in another hadith, Wallahi la yu'min, Wallahi la yu'min. And they said, who? By Allah, who's the one that wouldn't be considered as part of the believers? And he said, Man la ya'manu jarahu bawa'iq. The person that their own neighbors cannot trust the calamities that they might bring onto them. This is extremely important. Let's look at this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that the neighbor are three types. Number one, a neighbor that has three rights, a neighbor that has two, and a neighbor that has one. For the neighbor that has three, that would be the neighbor that is a Muslim, that is a relative, and therefore they would basically have the right of being neighbors and the right of being relatives. And also the right of being Muslim, where you would probably call them to the masjid, invite them to the masjid, maybe see if they need any support, etc. And the neighbor that has two rights is basically the neighbor that is Muslim, and of course, the neighbor that is Muslim, and also you share. Exactly. The first one was he was Muslim and he was also a relative. This one, he's Muslim, but he's not a relative. And the other neighbor is basically the non-Muslim neighbor. Let me read this hadith from Sahih al-Bukhari. So Sayyidah Aysha, she told the Prophet ﷺ, I have two neighbors. Which one should I gift to? And the Prophet ﷺ said, well, the one that is closest to your door. And from this hadith, they actually had differences of opinions on whether we're talking about proximity in space or whether it would really be the closeness in terms of relationship, biology. That's the second one. Now, one thing is that they had differences of opinions on how far does a neighbor extend. Some went up to 40 neighbors. 40 neighbors. And some said seven. And some said it's not an issue. If they are hearing the adhan, then you're basically right there sharing dhikr together. That is so beautiful. They're hearing the adhan, they're hearing the iqamah, then you share an audio dhikr together. That is, I wonder if there is a word for religious romanticism. Spiritual romanticism. Is there? What is romance? So romance is love, right? Romance is love. But is there such a thing where you love a person because they're, hub fillah kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, it's called hub fillah.
It's buried there because the 7 wings, one of them want to go to
Hub
there.
fillah, there you go.
They want to go to Jannah through that way. The 7 people will be saved, but
Exactly.
the 2 people love each other.
Exactly. Ya Allah, Jameel. So let's see this one. Let's see. علي بن أبي طالب said من سمع النداء فهو جار. Ali ibn Abi Talib said, if they can hear the adhan and they can hear the call to prayer, then he's a neighbor. And the other group, they said, if they can hear the iqamah, then they're neighbors. If they can hear the iqamah, then they're neighbors. Now, what are some of the things that Prophet ﷺ said that we should deal with the neighbors? Number one, give them food. Let's see this one. The Prophet ﷺ, the hadith in Sahih Muslim, he said, يا أبا ذر إذا طبخت مرقة فأكثر ماءها وتعاهد جيرانك. Abu Dhar, the Prophet ﷺ tells him, Abu Dhar, if you cook, increase from the broth and then pass it on to the neighbors. Here's one thing. If you were to increase the broth, and I gave you a jug or a Tupperware and put you some broth, although it wouldn't be too respectful, because where's the meat? Right? Where's the meat? But the Prophet ﷺ was basically giving an idea, even if you were so cheap, at least share broth. Or even if you couldn't afford it, increase from at least the broth, let them at least cook with it. At least let them cook with it. Let's continue right there. So the sunnah to pass on broth even. By the way, we have in the Palestinian culture, I like that, okay? So what we do, let's say you give me a bowl of food. It's part of our Palestinian culture. If you give me a bowl of food, right now we give in Tupperwares, right? But back then, Tupperwares were not available. So you would give the plate of food that you would make and you would give it to your neighbors. If you want to return the plate, you either return the plate with another type of food that you would cook and share it with them. And if you don't have anything to share, at least put some green herb on it. So beautiful, huh? You really? Wallahi, look at that. Look at that. They probably took it from the Palestinians.
It's shame even if you want to give it to them, like empty bowl.
Exactly. Don't give an empty bowl. Even if you put a green herb, it's like to keep it green. Huh? To keep it green. All right, let's see. All right, so let's continue. So what are some of the things that are part of in showing respect to the neighbor? Number one is that here he said, the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith, لا يمنع أحدكم جاره أن يغرز خشبة في جداره. In other words, if they wanted to build a fence and they probably needed to expand a certain area, if it doesn't harm you, give them the space. In other words, trying to share space, trying to share food, we talked about before, trying to share food, trying to share salam, trying to share hidayah. And let's see this one. The Prophet ﷺ, look at this hadith. Although this hadith is not necessarily authentic, because in its chain of narration, there is Abu al-Fadl Uthman ibn Matar al-Shaybani. They said he wasn't necessarily authentic. But let's see what he says. That the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked, what are the rights for a neighbor? He said, if he were to ask you for a loan, you would give him. If he were to ask you for any help, you would basically help him. And if he were to be in need, you would give him what he needs. And if he were to be ill, that you would visit them. And if they were to die, you would basically participate in their funeral. And if something were to happen to them, whether it's probably a good celebration, you would, or an evil celebration, you would support them. So if it's a good celebration, be there at the wedding. If it's a bad thing that happened, you would at least give them the support as much as you can. And you would not expand too much in building on your premise in order to probably obstruct their airway or probably obstruct the sunshine from going to their house. And of course, if you were to buy a fruit, probably send them some as well in order to basically bring in joy to them. And if you cannot give them from that fruit, then at least, of course, that was common back then, because the children would take some food and actually go and wander around in the street. Okay, right now, no, you eat at home. You barely see children outside. But how many people lived and grew up in Muslim countries? Or not Muslim countries, there's not a single Muslim country, but I mean, let's call it back home. I don't know where that is right now. I guess Malaysia is right now my home, that I didn't even see yet. But all right.
Yes. You already Malaysian?
I'm already Malaysian. I don't look like one.
Oh yeah, you are.
I am. There you go. This is Palestinian, girl.
Well, but they like to put that. They like this kind of.
They like this?
Like
Like the round thingy?
Yeah, this,
Okay. But this is Palestinian.
yeah.
It's complete Palestinian.
They don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Let's continue. Yeah. So what this hadith was, I'll just summarize, is that what this hadith was saying is that if your child were to have, for example, a fruit, give their children part of that fruit, or at least share to them, so their children can also enjoy part of that fruit as well. And at the end of the day, is that it's part of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's say the other one. Should we actually give the mushrikeen, if they are not Muslim, should we also give them? Here's a hadith. Why is that even a question? So that is a question because the Prophet ﷺ was asked, should we give from luhumin nusuk, the meat of nusuk? What is a nusuk? A nusuk is slaughter, but it's not any type of a slaughter. It's a slaughter that you would do for worship. And the Prophet ﷺ said, don't give the mushrikeen from nusuk al-muslimin, from the slaughter that Muslims had done. Now, scholars actually debated, because there is another hadith where Sayyidah Aysha was told by the Prophet ﷺ, while she was distributing the slaughter that they had done on the day of Eid al-Adha, he told her, start with giving our neighbor or our Jewish neighbor. Start with giving our Jewish neighbor. So then they had differences of opinions on whether we're talking about giving nusuk. Are we supposed to be giving non-Muslims from a nusuk or not? So some scholars, they regarded that, no, you should, if it's a ibadah, it would be only for those that would practice the ibadah. Because they considered that it was more than just giving a donation, but that there was a religious inspiration in it. The other scholars, they said, no, you can, based on this hadith, it's not exclusive to Muslims, because it said that the Prophet ﷺ told her, start with our Jewish neighbor. Start with our Jewish neighbor. And therefore, they regarded that, no, when we're talking about nusuk, when we're talking about distributing for non-Muslims, we're actually talking about things that are exclusive for ibadah, like Hajj, and not necessarily udhiyah as well during Eid al-Adha. Some scholars, they extended it for Eid al-Adha as well, but I'm just, trying to make the story short. Let's see Sahib bil-Janb. Sahib bil-Janb is probably the most interesting, to be honest, because the majority said it's the companion that would be with you during travel. Let me read a couple things here. During travel. Let's see. So the Prophet ﷺ was with a Sahabi. This Sahabi was accompanying another Sahabi. It seems like there were two sticks blocking the way, and he cut one of them, or somehow that was considered like a good catch or something. So he gave it to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ tells him, give it to, listen to this, ladies. He said, give it to the one that you were accompanying, because the Prophet ﷺ explained to him, فَإِنَّهُ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ صَحَابَتِهِ وَلَوْ سَاعَةً مِّن نَهَارٍ. Because you will be asked about the companionship you would do with a person, even if it was an hour. Of course, this is not literally an hour, but even if it was a short period of time. So whether we sat together, probably drank coffee at a place, or probably went to the park, or probably went shopping together, whatever it is, went to the masjid, we will be considered that we were companions at that time. And we will be asked about this gathering. What did you do during the gathering? That is a sahib bil-janb. Let's see. So what should I do if I'm actually with a person? What should I do if I'm when we're going on a journey? Listen to this. This one was really interesting when I read it. Rabi'a ibn Abi Abdul Rahman, he said, there's a muru'ah. Listen to the word muru'ah. Al-muru'ah is a sense of humor. Al-muru'ah can mean sense of humor. Al-muru'ah can be an honor. Can mean two things. A sense of humor and an honor. An honor would be, it's not necessarily haram, but it is more of an honor that you would consider that this is a noble thing to do. All right? An honor, noble thing to do. But al-muru'ah, the other one, is a sense of humor. Listen to this. He said, during a journey, there's a sense of humor. In other words, the way that you would practice your sense of humor when you are on a journey, you should practice things differently compared to when you're really a resident of that place. So what should I do during a journey? He said, لِلسَّفَرَةِ مُرُوءَةٌ وَلِلْحَضَرِ مُرُوءَةٌ فَأَمَّا الْمُرُوءَةُ فِي السَّفَرِ فَبَذْلُ الزَّادِ وقلة الخلاف على الأصحاب وكثرة المزاح في غير مساخط الله. What does that mean? He said, the sense of humor and a good company during a travel is, number one, sharing food. بذل الزاد. Share food. Don't just consider yourself. Give others from your food, because they also might not have probably had, the backup that was expected. Number two, قلة الخلاف على الأصحاب. Don't constantly argue with the people that you're accompanying. Try to find ways to make a companionship. Reduce argument. Even if you disagree with the person, delay it. Make it fun. Make it engaging. And that's why he even said, now the final one is rather interesting. وَكَثْرَةُ الْمُزَاحِ فِي غَيْرِ مَسَاخِطِ اللَّهِ. كثرة المزاح, joke around a lot. In things that are not haram.
Okay.
That was really rather interesting. It's like, make the journey fun. I think we need people like that, don't we?
Yes.
We need people like that. Some people, wallahi, subhanallah. Yes, don't don't joke too much to become a silly person, and don't make yourself become a joker. Definitely. But also be a person that brings happiness and changes people's moods. SubhanAllah, it just becomes, the comedians, without you recognizing, they can laugh at you and make you laugh too.
Yes. A lot of the time.
Comedians. I think we need Muslim comedians, right?
We don't have.
We don't have them, right? I think we're just too serious, right? We actually need Muslim comedians.
We do have some.
We do have some? Okay. Are they keeping their boundaries, or
I mean,
I think the halal boundaries is the problem.
halal boundaries is the problem?
Yeah, we
Is
have
it
a
the
lot of
problem, or is
comedians.
it that most people don't know how to abide by them? Right? They're not the problem, but most people don't abide by the halal boundaries.
They don't.
Yep. So I think we really, and by the way, comedy,
David Chappelle is Muslim.
what was that?
David Chappelle.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
What was his name?
Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
Muslim.
Dave Chappelle's Muslim.
He doesn't have.
But it's just, it's like dark comedy.
It's bad.
Bad? Oh,
You don't know Dave Chappelle?
no,
Dave Chappelle.
no.
Huh? He's Muslim, yeah.
Yeah, he said he was.
Really? Really? Does he say a lot of bad words?
They tried to
That's
cancel
one
him,
thing.
remember?
No.
Yeah, I don't watch him anymore, but he was.
Yeah, it's really sad that a lot of the Muslim comedians that I had seen, I think they had really taken a lot from the modern slash, I would say, the culture. And they think in order to be funny that you have to use a lot of profanity. There's a lot of fuhsh. There's a lot of fuhsh. There's a lot of the Prophet ليس المؤمن بالطعان ولا اللعان ولا الفاحش ولا البذيء. There's a lot of بذاء. But I think we need comedians that know how to bring in. You see, when we're talking about bringing in, we're talking about bringing in an awareness without the person recognizing that you're trying to help them learn. This is important. If you look at comedy here in the US, you look at comedy, it had a lot of influence in changing the mindset of the masses, because without them recognizing that comedy right there, it was putting in a lot of whether information or misinformation while they were just here, living in the satire and just laughing. And they didn't even recognize that there was a message, and a serious message. People don't always like serious messages. Serious messages, it kind of gets you too hypersensitive, right? Serious messages aren't always too fun because it kind of gets you too tensed. But a funny way to deliver the message, I think, is really needed, but not all the time. Why? Well, it depends. You can't teach fiqh and actually be a comedian. That's disrespecting that ilm. That's disrespecting the fiqh, disrespecting the ilm, disrespecting the ilm itself if you're going to make it into satire all the time. But it's important that sa'atun wa sa'a, an hour of seriousness, and between, as much as you would put salt on the food, they would say, is how much you would really need some type of muzah. Satire, joking around, sense of humor, okay? In Arabic, it's called muzah. Il-muzah comes from the root zaha. Zaha means to move. Good thing I didn't flip it. Right here next to it. This is zaha. Zah means to move something. And many scholars actually had spoken in detail about the dangers of muzah. That it does, if a person is constantly joking, it will harden their heart and kill the spirituality from their heart. And they said, سُمِّيَ الْمُزَاحُ مُزَاحًا لِأَنَّهُ زَاحَ صَاحِبِهِ عَنِ الْحَقِّ. They said al-muzah was called some type of movement because it moves the person away from truth, away from seriousness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يَسْتَخِفَنَّكَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. And those that don't have they don't have certainty, don't let them at all see you in a way where you're of no honor. You have to give yourself honor, and especially if you're working in da'wah. If you're working in da'wah, you have to be this pioneer. You have to be the beacon that others see within you, that you actually resemble what you teach, what you are trying to basically live, basically encompass. So when we're speaking about, yes, having some muzah, some comedy, it's definitely needed. But when you're actually in and being a resident, or even at times just learn how much of that muzah is needed, when it's needed. When can we joke? How can we joke? Il-muzah and comedy in Islam should not contain profanity. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, لَيْسَ الْمُؤْمِنْ بِالطَّعَانِ وَلَا اللَّعَانِ. It should not contain words that are inappropriate, or words or practices that are haram. It's not funny. In Islam, illicit behavior, illicit speech is not funny. At all, it's not funny. It should be something that is condemned. It should be something that we must stop. It should be something that we have to learn. It's okay to be funny, but know how much of it, and know when to do it, and know how to do it. And remember, not everyone will take a sense of humor. Some people, they don't like it. They're just serious. Just know how to deal with these people. They just don't want that. And I'll tell you ladies one thing. I know outside of camera, you know that I'm a person that jokes around too much.
Yeah.
Right? Outside of camera, you know very well that I joke around too much. I'll tell you one thing, just my little anecdotal thing. Many times people will misunderstand your sense of humor. It can happen, Zamzam. It can happen.
Teach fiqh every day. If you're joking,
It can get misunderstood. And that's why you always want to ask people around you to forgive you if you had slipped in anything that was misunderstood without you recognizing. Some people might be hurt. You didn't mean it, but they will be hurt. So you just have to let others know that one, you don't mean it. And number two, when you are hurt, approach the person and say, I didn't like what you had said. I think as many times different people from different cultures, they might not be comfortable with approaching. That's it. They'll step away and that's it. They don't like that person anymore because they would think that they mean it. But I think it's really important that we would confront that person. Hey, I'm hurt with this because this is what al-ukhuwa fillah is. True Muslim brotherhood is when we are transparent with one another. That, hey, I was hurt. Can you explain this to me? Did you mean it? This is what brotherhood is. Brotherhood is when we're honest to each other. Brotherhood is when التمس لأخيك عذرا. Try to seek and see whether there was a reason, well, maybe you misunderstood. And most of the problems and most of the tensions don't actually come from a bad intention, but as a result of a wrong interpretation. Not a bad intention. I've seen that so many times where you would see Sister X and Sister Y, they're actually both good sisters with good intentions, but then they just had a wrong interpretation of each other's motivation. Each other's motive. They had a different interpretation. Oh, she meant to hurt me. She meant to say this. She meant to somehow dishonor me. She meant to overcome my position. She stepped on my toe. And the list goes on and on. It's usually a misinterpretation of what the motives are. We usually, and what do we misinterpret? We would misinterpret people's intentions. Misinterpret people's intentions. What did she mean by that move? Oh, she probably meant to hurt me. She probably meant to envy me, whatever it is. And of course, the drama between women is way more than the drama between guys. Now, here's one thing. The trauma between guys is not to say it's not there. Their trauma actually goes farther because it's a price to pay. The drama between girls, it's a psychological price to pay. A psychological price to pay. We basically go into anxiety and we keep it within. Let's see, what does he say about, well, المروءة في الحضر. He said, what is the sense of humor when we're residents in an area? He said, الإدمان إلى المساجد. الإدمان is really meaning addiction. But this is not talking about addiction. He said addiction to going to masajid. Going to the masajid. To be addicted to going to the masjid. Be addicted to reading Quran. And having كثرة الإخوان في الله عز وجل. This is really beautiful. What is كثرة الإخوان? Having a lot of brother and sisterhood. A lot of people. She knows that one, and she knows that one, and she knows that one. Just get to know everybody. Get to know everybody. And you will see one thing. The more people you know, the more you become humble. You know why? You have to. You know why? Because the more people you know, the more you discover that there are many people like you and many people that are better than you. That's what you will learn. The other thing is, when you get to know so many people, you will also meet a lot of people that have a very beautiful personality. And some might actually be with a little challenging personality, but then you will then discover that that person that you once judged that they had a hard personality, you just didn't know what they were going through. You just didn't know what they were going through. So you just learn how to make excuses, and you will make a lot of mistakes. Oh, yeah. You will make a lot of mistakes. And a lot of mistakes. And a lot of people will be hurt by you. But here's one thing, is by making such a relationship, you will learn more and more of people's experiences. The older you get, you will actually start learning from people's experiences and how to avoid the mistakes that they had fallen into. The more friendships you will have, the more you might actually get a promotion of shafa'ah, because she might be the shafi'ah, or she might be the shafi'ah, or she might be the shafi'ah. At least if she wasn't the one, then she'll probably be one. Maybe she'll include me in it. Maybe she'll include me in it. And the Prophet ﷺ was basically saying in the hadith that the best of the mu'mineen are really the ones that have the best akhlaq. Al-akhlaq. What is al-akhlaq? Al-akhlaq are, there's al-khalq. Al-khalq is your outer appearance. Al-khuluq is the inner appearance. How do we know a person's inner appearance, inner creation? And that's only seen by the person's behavior. That's al-akhlaq. And Islam is all about having akhlaq. It's all about having akhlaq. And where zina, it's basically going against akhlaq. When you're talking about sariqah, it's basically Islam is all founded on akhlaq. Let's continue. وابن السبيل. Oh, Ibn Sabil. Who's Ibn Sabil? Ibn Sabil is basically the person that's passing by. Probably their car broke down. Maybe their car broke down. Or maybe something happened to them. Got mislocated somehow. Lost their way. Right now it's so easy. Maybe needed a charger, who knows what. So that's Ibn Sabil. ما ملكت أيمانكم. Who are ملك اليمين? Who are ملك اليمين? ملك اليمين. Concubines, the slaves. Oh, the slaves. You got lost?
Yeah.
Not the slaves? Okay, ملك اليمين, it's a compound word. It means what your right hand possesses. But this is a compound word. To actually translate it literally, what your right hand possesses is a wrong translation. But this is because this is a compound word, but this is more of a metaphor. It's not what their right hand possesses. I've got my pencil in my right hand. Is this talking about a pencil? No. This is a metaphor that refers to the slaves that people would basically have in their property. And we talked about that. We're not going to go in details about that. But in general, the Prophet ﷺ was definitely right there talking about milk al-yamin, in where he said, "Man la yamkum min mamlukikum fa'at'imuhum mimma ta'kulun waksuhum mimma taksun wa man la yulayimkum minhum fabi'uhu wa la tu'adhibu khalq Allah." Said, whoever is under your authority from the slaves, then give them from the food that you're eating and give them from the clothes that you're wearing. And if they're not obeying your authority, or you basically just don't want them anymore, well, don't abuse them. Don't abuse them and just sell them. Give them away, but don't abuse them. You've got an option. You're not clicking, let them move on. And the even higher one, al-Bukhari was writing the hadith. Who's al-Bukhari? What's his name? Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari. Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari. Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari had a warraq. You know what a warraq is? A scriber, a person that scribes. His name is Abu Hatim. And he would many times write the hadith throughout the night, because during the day it would be a lot easier to see the travel and see, of course, where you're going than in the nighttime. So al-Bukhari would lay out, especially those that were do their PhD and their masters, they know what that looks like, especially back then when we didn't have these laptops and like the way we have them right now. You would have like 20 and 30 and 40 books right in front of you open. Right in front of you. This is real. This is real. Okay, you would have like 40, and you don't want anybody moving a single book because you have a certain page, you've got it open on a certain page, you've got it assigned a certain thing, and you don't want anybody moving anything. I remember when I used to have that while I was doing my PhD, and it was like a sacred space. Don't even dare get near. It was like a sacred space. Anyhow, so al-Bukhari's slave girl, she was walking, and then what happened? She tripped on the ink container, and that got spilled. And certainly the books also got, yep. So al-Bukhari said, "Don't you know how to walk?" And she said, "Well, you've got all your stuff all around. I couldn't even walk." Al-Bukhari gets so furious. So he just looks at her and says, "You're free. Just go." And they said, "Well, you could have actually done something else." And he said, "No. I wanted to just be part of wal-afina anin nas." That's it. It's like he got so angry, but he just wanted to, that's it, you're free. And in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ actually said that there is ثلاثة جدهن جد وهزلهن جد الطلاق والعتاق والنكاح. What does that mean? Sounds like Chinese, the hadith, doesn't it? ثلاثة جدهن جد وهزلهن جد الطلاق والعتاق والنكاح. When I heard that hadith, I was like, is that even Arabic? What is ثلاثة جدهن جد? جدهن جد or جدهن? Well, no, جدهن. All right. So the seriousness in them, al-jad is different than al-jid. Al-jad is grandfather, but al-jid is basically seriousness. So there are three things: whether you said it in a serious manner or whether you were doing it in al-hazl. What is al-hazl? Al-hazl is like al-muzah. Al-hazl is when you were joking about it, or you were saying it, but you were not serious about it. But Islamically, there are three things: whether you're serious about it or whether you are joking about it, they're going to be considered as jid. They're going to be considered as serious. Al-talaq, divorce. Al-itaq, divorce, freeing a slave. Wal-nikah, and marriage. And marriage. So what does that mean? So if a person were to tell a slave, and you know what? You're free. Psych. I was just joking. No, that's going to actually take place. No, that's going to take place. And even if a husband were to tell his wife, "You're divorced," that's going to take place. There's no joking in this. There's no joking. What about marriage? A man telling a woman, "You're my wife." I was just joking. This is with the wali. This is with the wali.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we're talking about two approving.
It must
The
be
wali
this
has to
day.
approve, and the girl has to approve, or the man has to approve. Oh, there's no joking in this. Oh, let's continue. Yes, ma'am. Is she what? If she convinced her husband to divorce her?
See, I can hear it on
Convinced her
here,
husband to divorce.
but it's this
And
day.
and
I need a
said,
new
"You're
one.
talaq." There you go. That's a divorce. That's a divorce.
That can be joking or that can be.
No, this is serious. No,
I was just saying.
this is no. This is gonna take place. This is gonna take place. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about if he say raja?
If he says raja, that the divorce is still considered the divorce. Okay, so you brought her back, but the divorce is still considered.
Does it matter in the situation?
What?
Does it matter the situation?
Unless he's drunk. Okay. Differences of opinions on whether the drunk guy, if he's drunk or under some influence, whether that divorce does happen or not. Differences of opinions between scholars on that. Differences of opinions on whether, if she had her period, on whether it does take place or not. I'm just making the story short, okay?
But what if you don't know what if you're ignorant and you joked and you do not know this stuff? Do I have to have the knowledge of
You have to have, so you have to, if you have access to ilm, you have no excuse for not having it.
Okay.
If you have access to ilm, then you don't have excuse for not knowing. If you don't know it, you can't claim that, well, I didn't know, and just dismiss it. I didn't know. Okay, that's it. No. If you have access to it, you don't have excuse to not know. Shifa'ul ayy su'al. To cure your ignorance, go and learn. Go ahead.
What if you forgot that rule?
What if she forgot the rule? Well, anyways, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna Allah tajawaza li an ummati al-khata'a wa nisyan wa mastukrihu alayh." The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had dismissed 3 things of the ummah. Things that they had done by mistake, things that they had forgotten, and things that they were forced to do. Okay? Now, in regards to forgetting that, that the divorce actually takes place. The guy, let's say he was the one that initiated the divorce. And he said, I really forgot whether that it takes place. And I completely forgot. I took the class, but I completely forgot. Scholars had differences of opinions on whether it does fall, in other words, it does become active, or whether it is inactive. Why? Because they had differences of opinions in this hadith on whether we're talking about things that they will be held accountable in the eyes of Allah, but when it comes to the implications on ground, we treat it differently. Are you with me here? Let's do it again. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that's going to not hold you accountable. If you were forced, did something by mistake, or you forgot, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't hold you accountable, but that doesn't dismiss the implication of the behavior. Let's give an example. Right here, I wanted to mess around with the mic. So I basically started somehow, who would do that, but whatever, tossing the mic up in the air. Toss the mic up in the air, and then it falls and breaks somebody's foot. It's quite heavy. Break somebody's foot. Oh, I didn't mean it, sorry. But that sister doesn't have health insurance. Who's gonna pay? But I didn't mean it. Yeah, nice try. too bad for you. But your words are not going to cover the cost of the and repair what you had just done. You didn't mean it. That's nice. I'm really happy about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't hold you accountable, but I will. Fair is fair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't hold you accountable, but I will. You're going to have to pay for the medical costs. You see what I'm saying? Same thing. You forgot that the ruling is like this. Some scholars will say, yeah, so if they forgot, then based on this hadith, the person is dismissed. The other group of scholars, they said, no. The implication still takes place. Why? Because, all right, it's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't hold you accountable, but in this dunya, you said it, we're going to hold you accountable. It's going to be considered. All right? Same thing if we're talking about what if we force the person, divorce your wife. Is that considered divorce? Or is that not considered divorce? Differences of opinions between scholars. I want you guys to get this fiqhi side of it, okay? So we can understand, oh, how could they actually have differences of opinions when it's just the same hadith? You see it? All right. وَمَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. We talked a lot about that. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ مَنْ كَانَ مُخْتَالًا فَخُورًا. For the Lord Almighty dislikes somebody that is al-mukhtal. What is al-mukhtal? Al-mukhtal is basically a person that is very amazed and amused of themselves. They take themselves, they're very arrogant. They have a problem with exaggerating their potentials, exaggerating all the good things about themselves, and they think that they are somehow better than others and therefore deserving the authority, privilege more than others. That's a mukhtal. Al-fakhur is a person that is arrogant, seeing others that they don't have the privileges, they shouldn't have the privileges, they shouldn't have the same rights because they consider themselves as less than them. Go ahead, my dear. Raise your voice, my dear. So that is, if a husband were to say you are like my mother, now one thing, if he were to say you're just like my mom, that's not ilah. Okay, that's not ilah. Ilah would be where it was a common practice that they used to do something called ilah. It was a type of divorce in where what he meant to say is that you are going to be exactly like the relationship between me and my mother. There's no intimacy, there's no lust, there is nothing whatsoever. We're just going to be completely like as if we are mahram on each other. That's al-ilah. Or dhihar, sorry. Because al-ilah would be if he were to say, Wallahi, I will not be intimate with you. That's al-ilah. Al-dhihar would be if he were to say, you're just like my mother. And what he meant by like my mother, not that you're just like my mother where she was so kind. No, it's talking about you were like my mother to me in terms of relationship, in terms of the relationship in how he would relate with his mother, in where he does not see her as a place of intimacy, not see her as a place of a wife whatsoever. He would only see her as a mother. Okay, so in that situation, that's a dhihar. That's a dhihar. Al-ilah is different. Al-ilah, he would say, Wallahi, I'm never gonna be in bed with you. That's ilah. We would give him a certain time. What was that? Ilah, no, they would be given a certain time. If he does, so the Prophet ﷺ said, من حلف على يمين فرأى غيرها خيرا منها فليأتي الذي هو خير وليكفر عن يمينه. Whoever, this is the general thing, is that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever makes an oath on something and then they see that there's something better than what they had made an oath on, then they should do what is better and pay the expiation / kafara for whatever they had made the oath on. So let's say I made an oath, Wallahi, I'm not going to eat at your house. Wallah, I'm never going to talk to you. And in that situation, you took a time and kind of went over yourself, like, why did I say just such a stupid thing? That wasn't right. It happens a lot, right? So in that situation, but I made the yameen. All right. In that situation, you made the yameen. Did you mean the yameen? Yes, I meant the yameen. So in that situation, you would pay the expiation. What would be the expiation? Feeding 10 needy people, or giving money to clothe 10 needy people, clothing 10 needy people. But that's a lot. I can barely pay my own utilities. Sure. Fast 3 days. You know what? I'm actually diabetic. I can't fast. Make a lot of istighfar and make sure don't do this again. Got it? Now, من حلف على يمين فرأى غيرها خيرا منها is really for اليمين المنعقدة. The yamin, the oath that you really mean. This is not like what is called yamin al-lahu. You know, Somali sisters would be sitting together, wallahi, wallahi, and you're like, what is she will say wallahi on? Really nothing serious, but it's just lahu. What is lahu? It's just a word that they would say. Right? It's just a word that they would say. They don't really mean a yamin with it. Okay? So what was the main thing? I want you to look at this one. For the Lord Almighty dislikes those that are walking in mukhtalan fakhura. Al-mukhtal is a person that thinks too much of themselves. They exaggerate their potentials, exaggerate the privileges that they have, and they basically think that they're the ones that are just too smart, just too good, and they deserve all of that. They were really behind all the different privileges. It was really because they were just doing the right thing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, well, those that don't recognize, in other words, how to see other people's potentials, other people's also the good things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed them with, and they don't see that what created, if you really have a potential, what created that potential is not really you. It was really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. بتوفيق من Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was really just coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you manage to get your degrees, well, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are so healthy, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are so rich, rizq is from Allah. If you are so smart, you just have everything going the right direction, well, good for you. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not from you. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How to treat our arrogance. Here we go. الذين يبخلون ويأمرون الناس بالبخل. Don't worry, it's going to be the last ayah. All right. How to treat our arrogance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is then saying, those that would be greedy, selfish, and they would order other people to be greedy and selfish, and they would hide all the different things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given them in provisions, and the Lord Almighty had prepared for them عذابا مهينا, a torment that would be humiliating. In other words, what is the best way to treat arrogance is to, number one, don't be from those that would be selfish and want everything for themselves by giving others, by reminding others. The Prophet ﷺ actually said, Allahumma inni as'aluka fi'la al-khayrat. I ask you to do what is good, to be able to do what is good. Give me the ability to be able to do what is good, and to leave al-munkarat, and حب المساكين and loving المساكين. Why? Because that's your way to be able to not be مختالا فخورا. Learn how to be humble. How can I learn how to be humble? Go and donate. Donate. What does that have to do with anything? Once you donate, you relate with others that are probably less privileged than you. Once you donate, you start learning how to give up on what you have and learn that there's something more important than the privilege that you think is the top thing. You learn that al-akhlaq, you learn that being humble, you learn that principle, you learn that all these values of sharing is even of a higher value than all that you might have in terms of different provisions. And that's why he says, وَيَأْمُرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْبُخْلِ. What is going to bring arrogance? Well, they would also order others to not donate. They would order others. They would somehow spread the idea to let other people not donate and contribute. And they would even hide that the real reason behind all the provisions that they have is really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not necessarily because they happen to be so smart or because they just happen to have some kind of a privilege because of who they are. But the real matter and the real truth is really, it's really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If your marriage is working out great, well, good for you. But it's really because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had put hidayah in your husband's heart and in your heart. Right? It's really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you think that I just know how to find the right husband and I'm just so smart, yeah, think again. It's only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think again. You would actually get all the data, and the data seems outstanding. This man is this height, he's educated this much, and he's this, and you would get all this information, and you would think that that adds up to the perfect chemistry. It doesn't add up to the perfect chemistry, because a person can be rich yet be the most stingiest person on earth. A person can have degrees yet be the least understanding person on earth. The person can look like an imam at the masjid, yet he can have the least akhlaq and the least deen. The least akhlaq and the least deen. And you can have somebody that, I always say, being rich doesn't mean you're hospitable. Being a PhD holder doesn't mean you're understanding or educated. And also being or appearing religious doesn't mean that the person is really practicing it on the inside. That's a different thing. In other words, if you have a good husband, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. You have a good wife, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. It's not because you just happen, I'm so smart, I just know how to figure people out, I'm just so smart. No, it's really from tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you got the business, it's not because you're such a smart person that just knows how to do business. Rizq is from Allah. Rizq is from Allah. وَأَعْتَدْنَا الْكَافِرِينَ عَذَابًا مُهِينًا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of these people that basically are mukhtaran fakhura, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for them, He will humiliate them. Why? Because they were so arrogant. They will be getting there. وَالَّذِينَ يَنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ. I know I promised not to. I'll go faster. Okay. Now that would really caught me off guard. So we'll just choose a random ayah and we'll stop at it right there for Jannah, right? Exactly. Man, this is really scary. Every single A is really coming up to me. Let's see. Let's do this one. Let's do this one. الأخلاء يومئذ بعضهم لبعض عدو إلا المتقين. يا عبادي لا خوف عليكم اليوم ولا أنتم تحزنون. We'll stop right here.
Okay.
You know what that means?
No.
The best friends would be enemies to one another on Judgment Day, except those that had taqwa. Where they would be told, "O my servants, there's no fear on you today, and you will not face any sorrow." Those that would believe in our words, and they were Muslims, they would be told, "Enter Jannah, you and your spouses." Tuhbarun. Tuhbarun is like you would be given all the glad tidings. يطاف عليهم بصحاف من ذهب وأكواب, where they would be surrounded by بصحاف, like plates of gold and cups or mugs. Anywhere in it, there's everything that every soul desires and everything that every eye sees that it would enjoy. And they will be told, and you will be living there eternally. That is the Jannah that you had been granted for what you had been doing. You will be given lots and lots of fruits from what you will enjoy and eat. I had it to stop at somewhere like this, not that one, right? This is inshallah. We'll stop right here. We'll come back next week. We still have some time, right?
Yes.
Wednesday. Hold on. Wednesday, right? What is Wednesday?
16th we have
When is the last day of class? I'm hoping the 22nd, but I hope I'm able to do it because last minute things are usually the hardest, right? So if I have everything sorted out, okay, I'll still come on the 22nd. If I'm crunched in time, it'll be
next Friday.
it'll be the 20th.
Oh, the 20th.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, there you go. How about we just leave it at the 20th?
No, if you can do it
The 22nd?
if you can.
If I can. So let's leave it at,
No, she's not gonna come. Maybe Tuesday, the 19th.
yeah, there you go. Inshallah. So on the 16th, I think we're doing a farewell party. Is it here?
16th is a fair here.
Here.
Please come 16th.
Is this like a potluck? What, do you want me to cook a lasagna or something?
No, make that cheese with the broth that you were saying.
The cheese and the broth? Which one?
Yeah.
The Palestinian food.
The mansev? You want mansev? I don't think Somalis would like it. It's too strong for them. Somalis are delicate. They want malawi, right? What? So some people were writing in the chat, ya haram, and let's see.
From 3 to 6. From 3 to 6.
Difficult time to forgive and to forget, especially with my husband. Can you please tell us the benefits of forgiveness? I like that. You know what? I like that. How about this? Oh man, the Saturday class. That can actually be a whole lecture. I love it. Yeah, that way I can forgive my husband.
Forgiveness, yeah, that's hard.
That's a hard thing. Well, I think he really needs to forgive me. It's not the other. All right, so inshallah we'll continue Wednesday. Wednesday. Inshallah. Yeah, we'll do this one. Remind me, you guys, this topic is really important. Yep.
Did you briefly go over verse 75?
Verse 75 from that surah.
Yeah.
This one. This one.
So who's your leader? I don't know you guys.
70. You want me to continue? Now this one?
75?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, this is Surah al-Zukhruf.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Nisa.
Oh, Nisa. I'm like, okay. No, I thought you meant,
Oh, I thought we were on Surah Nisa.
yeah, we are. But that I had just, yeah, I purposely because I didn't, yeah, I wanted, exactly. I didn't want to. You wanted 75?
Yeah, 75. You can just roughly.
I have to find it first, right? وما لكم لا تقاتلون في سبيل الله والمستضعفين من الرجال والنساء والولدان الذين يقولون ربنا أخرجنا من هذه القرية الظالم أهلها واجعل لنا من لدنك وليا واجعل لنا من لدنك نصيرا. So that was, it was when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had ordered them to participate in jihad. Some of the munafiqeen, they didn't want to participate in jihad. And then this ayah was revealed. Why would you not fight fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when there are men that are of course vulnerable, and even women and children? They would basically cry out and say, oh Lord, get us out of this city that its dwellers are oppressors and oppressing us, that is. And Ya Allah, make us and give us an authority and a support from you, and give us an authority and a support from and victory from you. That's basically what the people of Ahl Gaza would be saying. Where all the Arab, all the Muslims, everyone right now is basically watching, and they're just saying, وَاجْعَلْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا. Ya Allah, you be our wali, you be our authority. You would be the one to give us victory. Khalas, we're done. We don't need the people.
That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying.
Exactly what it has to be Allah.
Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them victory. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them the water from Him, and give them the food from Him, and give them the support, and give them the protection, and give them also the moral support and the psychological support, and give and make them strong.
Ceasefire. I mean,
Ceasefire, I mean.
Well, they're still inside there though.
What?
I mean, those Israeli are inside, you're humiliating them now.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. Allah al-Musta'an. We'll end right here because the haram, the girls, they probably need to go home, and I'm keeping them. All right. Assalamu alaikum.